Spiky Bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches. Help keep our channel ad-free by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.
What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Baer here today with issue 120 of the new White Dwarf, and of course got the preview of the new Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. It's a really interesting looking game, and I was reading through this, kind of trying to read up and remember how the old Warhammer Quest game was. I mean, I probably played more Hero Quest, the board game by Milton Bradley, than I did the Warhammer Quest game. I remember Warhammer Quest being actually pretty brutal to play. Like, things just died, and I was like, I wonder if it's like that difficult. It doesn't seem to be, but there's a lot more surprises I'm sure in store for once you get kind of into it and start seeing things, because there's some random event kind of occurrence things, and it looks like there's just it's a really cool kind of thought out game, and it's definitely one of those things that you can play over a weekend, with some buds. It's kind of got that RPG kind of aspect to it. So here's the title page here, and it's pretty much the whole issue is devoted to this thing. Now remember, there's a bunch of rumors out that this is going into big box stores. It's kind of like the entry level thing for Age of Sigmar, and they're trying to kind of Battle for Vedros and Warhammer Quest are kind of like that whole like entry level kind of gateway into the hobby, so to speak, for Games Workshop that we're seeing coming up. Now, this actually it is titled Warhammer Quest, but it combines elements from Age of Sigmar and also Warhammer as well, which is already kind of folded up and put into Age of Sigmar, so to speak. But I'll try to point them out as I see them in here. But it is seamlessly blended, almost to the point where you don't really kind of realize you're seeing it and you're listening to it first. Now, this is a really dramatic kind of layout here. Of course, this isn't what the board game is. It looks like it's all the traditional tiles and such that we've seen in the past right here. Just like the Space Hulk game, the Battle for Calth game, all that stuff. Nothing's really changed. Now, it comes with 13 reversible tiles, and this is the Silver Tower. This is the Labyrinth of Tzeentch. It changes. It's never the same thing twice, and that aspect is actually true to form, according to the White Dwarf. Kind of like battle report in here, or demo game, I guess. It's kind of true to form in that regard there. So it was really interesting kind of reading all that, because you'll never play like the same game twice, as opposed to like the layout and things like that. It's like kind of ever shifting and really interesting, and kind of in that regard. Now, just glancing at it, I'm sure it's like the UV cardstock tiles with the embossing and all that good looking stuff. Now, just looking down at this, because remember, we don't have all the details. There hasn't been a demo video yet, and blah 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 blah. But just looking down at it, taking a look and reading up on it, you got the characters' little war scrolls with the places for their action dice, which we'll get to here in a second. You got the Mark of Tzeentch, or the rune player, which basically denotes which one is the dealer, so to speak, and gets to control the bad guys. And roll for the destiny dice. Then you've got the pieces of the amulet. There's 8 different ones of that, and that's like the whole thing about if you go into the Silver Labyrinth, the Silver Tower, that you're trying to complete this task for the Gaunt Summoner, which is the dude that kind of looks like the guy from Pan's Labyrinth. There's all the tiles. You've got different decks that you can draw from as well. Basically, there's a random occurrence deck, which is kind of like the boon table for Chaos, where you roll 2 dice, one's 10s, one's 1s, so it can be anywhere from 11 to 66. So there's a random occurrence that could occur there, and players level up and they get special abilities. They have this thing called Renowned, which I'm not exactly sure how it works. There's a Renown tracker. Some of the guys also have Renown, like if you do something it triggers and it goes off like that. But as far as miniatures go, I mean, the miniatures look great. There's bad guys, they're the Grot Snotling kind of things, and then of course you got all the heroes. You got the Denzians of the Silver Tower themselves. You got some pink horrors, some blue horrors, the Tzeentch looking dudes, the Birdman dudes, this big kind of Minotaur kind of thing, because what's a labyrinth without a Tzeentchy fishy Minotaur guarding it, right? I mean, duh. And then, of course, you've got, all your traditional stuff that you would come to expect from, the Warhammer guys there. So, that is the whole game in a nutshell, right? Now here's a closer look at the all the heroes and everything. And we've seen this in the past. These are this week all the spoilers and things that have been leaking out. Games Workshop surprisingly actually addressed all that stuff because somebody got the White Dwarf early. I think it was a French version. Put up these really small, kind of terrible pictures. I don't know why we all have freaking camera phones, people. They shoot little laser beams, and we still can't manage to take decent looking phones with our pics, or decent looking pics with our phones, because you can tell how frustrated I am. It's very hard to make out details. Pictures look great, but it's even like Games Workshop said, they're like, hey, we'd really like you guys to see these great looking miniatures, not these little squinty pics that would be in the Ben Stiller movie Zoolander. They need to be at least 1/6 the bigger the size here. And there's some truth to that, because it kind of devalues their product a little bit. So I feel what they're saying there. But obviously this White Dwarf is completely packed with all the stuff on the new game. There is a couple of paint splatters. There's one on some of the different guys. Then there's all the war scrolls in here for all the heroes. And we're not really going to get into that because, like I said, the pictures and all this stuff are all up all over line. You can find all this stuff and check them all out for yourself. I do want to go over the gameplay, though, because I feel like that's what a lot of people have the question about. And, they do a pretty good job of doing a walkthrough in here, so I feel like we should take a look at it. There is, like I said, a decent paint splatter, some good-looking Zeet stuff. But then it comes to this section here, which basically starts talking about all that, and we'll kind of go through this here. So basically your dudes meet in this room, this portal, and one player is going to be the room mark player. Like I said, the thing passes around just like a game of Texas Hold'em. One guy's basically the dealer, where he controls the bad guys. He also rolls the dice of destiny, which go right here around the Gaunt Summoner, and around this little marker here is the 9 trials that you have to complete for him in order to get his boons and blessings and things like that, and grants you a wish, because he's trying to get his amulet back. But you also have to complete the trials to get the amulet pieces, so it's kind of an inclusive thing. I'm not sure what these decks are. They don't really say. I'm sure one of them is the random occurrence deck, which can happen when you roll either basically a a Perils of the Warp in 40k or fantasy terms. There's a double 1s or double 6s. If those are rolled, then you pull from one of those decks. I'm assuming they don't really come out and say. There is the chart where you roll 2 dice, one's 10s, one's 1s, and it can either be 11 or 66 up to and starting at. And then I guess you just compare a chart or something like that. I didn't exactly get all the gist of that one. Now each player has action dice, which are color appropriate to them. Now I know in the description it was they each have unique dice, but really they're just colored dice. There's nothing super fancy about them, it doesn't look like. And then you roll them, and that's your action points that you basically place them in these little blocks right here, and you can use them to perform actions in the game. So if you roll a 3, basically you can do something that's kind of a 3-up. So I'll just kind of take some gameplay elements from all the different games we're used to playing and kind of plops them in here. And just kind of gives you an idea of what it's all about, right? So I'm digging it so far. So it looks like these markers progress in this direction following the arrows, and that basically, I guess you just go through nine rooms here, or 9 encounters or trials as they call them, and they're totally random because you generate the rooms totally at random. So the very first one, I guess, is called the Whirligig Passage, with all the little swirlies and stuff all over the floor right there. And then they kind of set it up, and they kind of talk about, there's action dice, which we just talked about. You roll these, and then you put them in the little slots here. They go across. And then there's certain ones that have a little open spot right there that you put the dice into it, kind of showing that you activated that ability for that turn, or what have you, from what I can glean from reading the article here. And then right here you put the Destiny dice around, and it's kind of like a pool of dice that any player can do, but when you spend it, you take the top dice out. It's locked, you can't use it. So it's kind of like a kind of trade out, like a feast or famine kind of thing in true Zinchian fashion, I feel like. So that's explaining the action dice, the impossible geography. Remember the Silver Tower, like I was saying, it shifts, so you never really know which way you're going to turn, which way you're going to go. And there's these little portals that basically you're not really walking down a hallway. You're kind of teleporting into a different section, I guess. It kind of looks like here. And then they've got where your the random encounter guys basically pop out from these little portals here. And there's wound counters, which also kind of denote Now on here, that's weird. They put the dice across here, like, yeah, that's your dice, but I guess there's also a wound counter. So maybe there's a mechanic that when you take a wound, you get one less action or something like that. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind here as well, which would make sense, as you're hurt and you can't do quite as much stuff. The wound counters also are up here, and it kind of looks like they're applying to some of the monsters, which would come out of the portal there. Unexpected events, we kind of talked about that. When you roll the dice up here, if you get double ones or double sixes, something happens. If you roll doubles in general, there's random mobs that pop up that you would fight, like champions and things like that, little horror. So the whirling blades came out from rolling a 33 on the unexpected events. Oh, and there was a spot in here too where it showed the contents of showed some example contents just to kind of get you familiar. Here's some of the example contents. So here's a couple of the tiles. This is the portals where you start. Now these right here are the pieces of the amulet that you're trying to put together, which correspond to one of the 8 symbols of the mortal realms. Remember, the mortal realms are the stuff from the Age of Sigmar. So, like I said, it kind of comes in and comes out, and there's things that make sense and things that don't. There's also stun markers. Here's your random mob markers, and a couple of flooring tiles right there to play on. So then it divides, and you can kind of follow along with the path here, like where they're going. And then it doesn't look like, they keep the trail going here. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. So it just goes this way, and then you go that way, and then you kind of pick up the things behind you. You can't really go back. We can only go forward. We can never go back. And, it just kind of goes on from there. And then it talks about the special abilities, the action points. You can activate things with their renowned, air quotes, and each guy has renowned at the bottom. As well there. Now, it does go into here to say that it's a cooperative game, so each one of these guys is controlled by a player, and then conversely, one of those players is also controlling the bad guys as well. So there's always that little political intrigue there for everybody playing. And then some things attack as a group, like these little grot scuttling guys right there. And then it jumps over here, and all the stuff in the middle here is like a narrative. Like they're basically narrating the whole battle and things, which I thought was pretty cool. Over here, they talk about on the Destiny dice, if you roll doubles, remember not just the perils, the double ones or the double six, doubles in general, spawn out a little champion, right? And which somehow you can either attempt to grab him and get a blessing and use him as a benefit for you, and then you basically put him on your card and you get to keep him. It looks like. Or, he just does something adversely, or, it's all random, which is pretty neat to see. And then it basically goes on to talk about renown, which we touched on briefly. Respite is something basically where there's no adversaries in the room, and you can basically heal or look around for treasure, and apparently the treasure's really good, but it doesn't always happen, and you can't get 2 respite periods in a row. Respite period is another time for you to get a hero back on the board if he's knocked out or takes fatal damage, which they talk about right over here. And then they also talk about specific scenarios, like the librarian scenario. I'm not sure exactly which one was the scenario because it starts talking about the Minotaur guy here, the Tramutage, the Orgarid. He's a freaking Minotaur, okay. They're talking about the event with him. So there's triggered events and things like that too, and then it keeps going. You keep going through here, picking up the pieces of the tiles as you go, and there's different skill tasks too. One of these is you have to stack dice on top, showing one of the pips at the corner, and without the dice tower falling, or the 4 stacks of dice on top of each other, otherwise your hero suffers a wound. So there's kind of this really cool narrative kind of aspect to everything in here, I feel like, which is I'm kind of digging it. And then eventually you get to the end, you complete your 9 trials, you I guess get your 8 amulet pieces, and then something triggers off with the Gaunt Summoner right there. But they don't really explain all that. They kind of they want you to go into your local retailer, FLGS or GW store to find out more, because they'll have a demo copy. I'm sure they will also be coming out with a demo video over the weekend as well, at some point, sometimes Saturday, sometimes as late as Mondays. It just kind of depends with the folks there at Games Workshop. And then it goes into the new Silver Tower app that's coming out, so you can actually enhance your adventure, I guess, basically. And then it goes into the new novel here that's coming out, 128-page hardback. just basically, I guess, about exactly what's going on and such. And then there's this nice little teaser that, hey, you heard it here first. White Dwarf 121, and will be on sale next weekend. Thanks, guys. So again, they didn't really kind of tease us with anything substantial or pertinent there. So it's going to be really interesting to see what else breaks that's ginormously good next weekend. Because remember, the teaser that comes out next week will be what comes out for Memorial Day weekend, which is their big GW 100 event at all their stores. So it's going to be something big, I imagine. It's going to close out the fiscal year for Games Workshop, because their fiscal year runs June to June. So their 2016 year hasn't actually even started yet. It will not start until June 1st. So that is going to be super interesting to see how all that goes right there. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this first look at the new Warhammer Quest game, the Silver Tower. And, it seems pretty neat. It's definitely got that RPG feel. I can see this doing well, but probably not as well as, some of the big 40K releases that we've seen out there. But if this is indeed slated to go into big box stores and be the gateway product for the Age of Sigmar and the hobby in general, I could see it doing very well here in the near future.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos,